Malaysia's military was once one of Southeast Asia's strongest. It had advanced supersonic fighter jets that only few had in the region. However, since the start of the 21st century, Malaysia's military has fallen off. Singapore, Thailand, and even Indonesia have surpassed Malaysia's military might. Malaysia, over the past 24 years, has seen tremendous problems and challenges to its military. So, what happened? How did Malaysia's military go from one of Southeast Asia's enviest to one of its weakest? Well, to understand that, let's talk about what made Malaysia strong to begin with. In the mid-1970s, the Royal Malaysian Air Force, RMAF, had acquired the Northrop F-5 fighter jets. These were highly regarded aircraft due to their supersonic status. These aircraft were one of the reasons why the Malaysian military stood out in Southeast Asia. However, the problems of the Malaysian military had already begun with this acquisition. The very problem that Malaysia continues to battle decades later has already shown up in the mid-1970s. When the RMAF acquired the Northrop F-5 fighters, there were issues with corruption. The National Bureau of Investigations, NBI, said that they were investigating allegations of corrupt practices surrounding the purchase of Northrop jet fighters and trainers by the Royal Malaysian Air Force. The Malaysian government spent about $39 million on these supersonic jets. These were arranged on a government-to-government basis. What the investigation found out is that certain individuals were allegedly paid a kickback by a local agent. The kickback, reportedly paid as an inducement to purchase the jets, was 3% of the total sale value. Then in 1978, a retired Malaysian Air Force Group Captain, Ahmed Shah Hashim, was sentenced to 7 years in prison for accepting $23,340 in kickbacks in exchange for recommending the government purchase 16 F-5 jet fighters. He was also ordered to return the $23,340 to the government within 6 months. This early acquisition of fighter jets had already shown the issues behind the Malaysian military. It is embroiled in corruption, which in turn makes it weak. What makes this even more scary is that corruption in the past is nothing compared to the corruption of the 21st century. Fast forward to 2009, this very F-5 jet fighter was again plunged into controversy. The problem here started when 2 F-5 fighter jet engines valued at $29 million were stolen. There were reports being published that these stolen jet engines had been sold on the black market by military officers to a South American company. The engines were reportedly taken from a military airbase around 2008. The Armed Forces Chief Aziz Narrated described the theft as just the tip of the iceberg after a completed audit revealed that military equipment worth millions of dollars was also missing. This led scrutiny against government officials. Police officers had also gone on and arrested 4 individuals, including the buyer, the seller, and Air Force personnel involved in the theft. At the center of this issue was the Prime Minister Najib Razak. Najib had seen a rise in corruption under his tenure. When this occurred, the opposition to him had even alleged that an illegal commission of $157 million was paid to a close associate of Najib to facilitate the purchase of 2 French-made submarines. The Prime Minister was denied any wrongdoing in the deal, which was signed in 2002 when he was Defense Minister. But just like the F-5 fighter jet, these submarines were too at the center of controversy. These started back in 2002 when Malaysia purchased 2 French Scorpion submarines for 1.2 billion euros. This was a massive deal and would earmark Malaysia's advanced submarines that could take on foreign threats. However, this deal would later become mirrored in controversy, revealing deep-seated corruption within both Malaysia and the French companies involved. These were all due to the introvertment of Abdul Razak Bajinda, a close associate of Najib and the director of the Malaysian Strategic Research Center. He had a company called Permacar, which received 114 million euros for support and coordination services related to the submarine deal. The only problem was the company was new and did not have relevant experience. They also received additional sums of 32.5 million euros, which were suspected to be part of a bribery scheme aimed at securing the deal and benefiting Malaysian officials, including Najib. When the French investigations had initiated their case, they uncovered evidence of a complex network of intermediaries and shell companies used to funnel bribes, in violation of the OECD Convention on Bribery. The investigation implicated former executives of Thales and DCNS along with Baginda and Najib as key figures in the scheme. Despite denials from the Malaysian government, this scandal highlighted the systematic corruption within the country's defense sector, with critics accusing Najib of allowing national wealth to be misused for political gain. This has again showcased the very nature of Malaysia's military, one that is weakened by corruption. One of the most scandalous events in Malaysia's history, however, is not these, but rather the $2 billion Littoral Combatant Ships (LCS) project. The LCS project was dubbed as Malaysia's naval future. They needed this project to bolster its naval capabilities. Yet an investigation by Malaysia's Public Accounts Committee (PAC) had exposed significant issues with the country's defense procurement processes. They found that the procurement had been involved with mismanagement, corruption, and inefficiency. This started when the project was awarded to Bousted Naval Shipyard SDN-BHD, BNS, through direct negotiation by the Ministry of Defense. This would see the construction of 6 LCS vessels. Despite the government having paid 6.08 billion Malaysian ringgit, or 66.65% of the total cost, none of the ships have been completed. 5 of these ships should be delivered by August 2022, but physical progress remains woefully behind schedule. The problems involved were many, but one of them was because of corruption. The PAC highlighted how $314 million in government funds allocated for the LCS project was misappropriated. The PAC report also uncovered that the contract's terms were heavily skewed against the government, with a convoluted subcontracting structure inflating supply costs by 3 to 4 times. To put it simply, the corruption and mismanagement associated with the LCS project not only drained substantial government resources, but also severely compromised the integrity of the contract itself. But that's not the only problem here. The report also highlighted the questionable role of BNS in the scandal. The company was found to have diverted $89 million from the LCS project to settle old debts from a previous New Generation Patrol Vessel, NGPV project, which had been plagued by delays and cost overruns. Why would they use money for the LCS project to pay old debts? That is the largest red flag here. Not only did they inflate supply costs, but they were also prioritizing other projects instead of the LCS project. Furthermore, an associate company of BNS, Contraves Advanced Devices, CAD, was even involved in its own scandal. It was alleged to have siphoned off $223 million by inflating prices on equipment procured from the Naval Group of France. What may be even more surprising is that an opposition member in 2022 had called on the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, MACC, Chief Tan Sri Azami Baki to explain why no charges have been recommended in what is considered Malaysia's largest naval procurement scandal. The opposition member pointed out that while a former Bousted Heavy Industries Corp. BHD managing director was charged with corruption, it wasn't related to the LCS scandal at all. A year later, by 2023, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim had voiced the need for continued investigations into the LCS project. He wanted to identify the quote-unquote real culprits behind its delays in financial mismanagement. By April 2024, the investigation was reported to still be ongoing. The Chief Commissioner Tan Sri Azam Baki said that the investigation has taken time due to complexity of tracing financial transactions and gathering evidence from multiple sources. Nevertheless, some individuals involved in the case have already been charged in court. So, as we saw throughout many projects, big and major projects were involved in mismanagement or corruption. What this simply means is that Malaysia is not really maximizing its budget for national security. A part of it is going to the pockets of someone else. This not only makes the Malaysian military equipment to make poorer decisions, but also decreases the morale of the entire country, especially its military. Finally, one should not forget that these are all just major projects. If scandal is seen in the billions of dollars worth of projects, then surely it can be seen in the smaller ones, those mere small millions, right? Well, anyway, do let us know what you think down in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.